You are listening to Veterans Action Report on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. I'm your host, Nick, coming to you live from St. Paul, Minnesota.
And I'm Andrew Canales, coming to you live from Evergreen, Colorado.
Every day, veterans are struggling with many issues spanning from homelessness to mental health crisis, often leading to 22 veterans a day taking their own lives. There are veterans all around the U.S. leading the fight to help guide our brothers and sisters to a better life. We will bring you stories from all around the country telling tales of veteran struggles and triumph. Every episode benefits veteran-run nonprofits Warriors Next Adventure, helping veterans fight PTSD through recreational therapy and new adventures. And Houses for Warriors, helping solve the homeless crisis, leading veterans to a better lifestyle. We are live. How's it going, everybody? This is the second episode of Veterans Action Report, and today I do not have Andrew with me, but we are going to have a special guest, TJ Kreutzer from We Defy Foundation. He's the VP. Real quick, before we get started, I'm actually going to play a video that will help everybody kind of understand a little bit about what We Defy is. The nonprofit helps veterans through jiu-jitsu and actually gets veterans involved in it. If you're 80% or more disabled, you actually qualify for a sponsorship or for a scholarship with these guys. They're doing absolutely amazing things. They are one of my favorite nonprofits that we partner up with. And these guys are all around just a group of really good individuals. So I'm going to play a video real quick. For those of you listening, please go back to the YouTube stream and check it out. Here we go.
This is normal. I wouldn't wish this burden on my worst enemy. Everywhere I turn, some doctor is offering me a prescription. Some good Samaritan is offering me a handout. Both numb the pain, but neither heal it. Where did my purpose go? Where did the man that led his peers go? He used to scream at me every morning to go for a run, work hard at the task at hand, and beat the odds.
I joined the military because at the time I was homeless, didn't really have anywhere else to go. And after about 2 years of trying to feed myself, I knew that if I joined the military, I'd at least get 3 meals a day.
My MOS was a 0331 machine gunner and injured in combat, PTSD and tinnitus from IED roadside bombs.
My job that I had in the military, I was what's called an 0351 anti-armor assaultman. Basically, you're infantry, you attach with a line platoon, but you carry TNT, blast caps, C4, a couple of rockets, in the case of a technical vehicle, a breach that needs to happen, or a door that needs to be punched through.
If I could choose whether to start over and do it different or the same, I'd probably do most of the stuff the same, but change like the little tweaks where it caused an argument or divorce or my kids hurtful things.
When I got home from the military, I had a really hard time adapting into society. You know, because I joined due to the fact of I was homeless, all my long adult relationships started in the military. You know, that was my life, and then they were gone right away. So whenever I became a civilian again, I didn't know how to manage adult friendships. I didn't know how to cope with my loss, my grief, my anxiety. So my adult life post-Marine Corps was one filled with alcohol, drugs, self-destructive behavior, separating myself from, I guess, being a normal, productive citizen.
Just like waking up feeling motivated. In the beginning, it kind of took that away from me. I kind of didn't know how to really transition back into regular civilian life. Gave me issues drinking and, you know what I mean, depression, and it struggled on my marriage, my kids. and I'm just now starting to supersede that and get past that.
I would follow the exact same course all the way up until when I got out and didn't really get the help that I needed or seek out the relationships that would help me move forward into, becoming a contributing member of society. I found out about We Defy Foundation through a fellow Marine by the name of Chris Blow, who trains here at Shabaro and is somewhat involved in the organization. We've been friends for quite some time, and my stress and anxiety was peaking to the point where, I was chasing my fiance down the hall in the middle of the night. I was having these really bad recurring dreams. One night, I put my foot through the wall, messed my foot up pretty bad, had to go to the emergency room, and then the very next day, Chris reached out and said, I need to come up here no matter what. I just had to come start training. Yes, I did find relief in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because the one thing that it did for me is I come in here and get my ass kicked for multiple hours, and especially here at Shabaro's place. Half the people here are vets, and the other ones, some of them are law enforcement, and there's just an accountability attitude that really made me come in here and give my all. So by the time I was done here and on my way home, a lot of the voices and the anxiety were quiet. And go home, take a shower, enjoy my partner, get a full night's rest. It really started to make a difference pretty quickly.
I found out about We Defy Foundation by a Marine Corps brother of mine, Ben Krosky. He just moved to Texas. He's been training jiu-jitsu for like 10 plus years. He was telling me, bro, you got to try it. I found this new gym. They got this We Defy Foundation, veterans, you know what I mean? So I just moved out here 3 weeks ago from Philadelphia to start my life over. And this is the first place he took me. Found a lot of relief, a lot of stress reliever. Definitely bonding with people, especially other veterans. And it's helping me bond with civilians more too, because I had a tendency of staring away from them, you know what I mean? I would hang out at veteran bars, go to veteran events, stuff like that. So it helps me try to mesh the two together.
I think my mic was muted that whole time. So sorry about that, guys. I'm gonna bring TJ on. I want you guys to go check out that that video. It's over on their YouTube, on We Defy Foundation's YouTube. Go to their Facebook page, their website, wedefyfoundation.org. There's a reason why I have TJ on this podcast. I've had TJ on the Warriors Next Adventure podcast, and everything that we talk about is real stuff, right? And so he has a very good mindset on why jiu-jitsu helps. He's a lot better at describing why jiu-jitsu is beneficial for veterans than I am, and so that's why I always try to have him on. We try to work together as much as we can for any kind of jiu-jitsu event. So TJ will bring you on. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Not too bad. Thanks again for doing this right before Veterans Day. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about how you got involved in We Defy, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay. My name's TJ Kreutzer. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, kind of a first-ring suburbs, blue-collar type, steel worker community, good schools, good families, good incomes at the time. And then, but it was the mid-90s when I was growing up in high school, and that's when the Rust Belt started, and kind of the economy in that part of the country fell apart. And I was super into airplanes and airplane video games. And my mom sat me down one day and said, "So what do you want to do when you grow up?" I don't know. I want to be a veterinarian, I think. I like dogs. She's like, "Well, okay, do you think you'd ever want to fly an airplane?" And I was like, "What do you talk? What? Like,
what kind of mom asked their kid that? That's
what?
Yeah.
Like from here to there, that's a leap. Who does that? It's like being an NFL player. Nobody we know does that. So how would you even do it?" And she said, "Well, have you ever heard of the Air Force Academy?" And I said, "No, I haven't." She goes, "Well, it's like West Point, if you know what that is." And I said, "Okay." So I understood that it's a military school. She said, yeah, if you graduate from there, then you are in the Air Force as an officer. You have a college degree, and we think that it would make you eligible to be a pilot if that's something you think you want to do. And there's no
How
money for
old
you
were
to
you
go
at
to
this time?
college. I was about 14, I think,
Okay.
maybe 15. I mean, I got a little bit of a late start on that application process, but she said, there's no money for you for college. And your father and I think your grades are strong enough that you should go to college somewhere, but we're not going to be able to pay for it. And that might be a way for this to happen. And when she said that, I just went for it. I mean, I spent the rest of high school, I think it was halfway through 10th grade, and the application process starts your junior year of high school. And from that moment on, I was all in trying to figure out how am I going to pull this off, getting to go to the Air Force Academy. My grades were okay. They were fairly competitive. I have a liaison officer at the time who helps kids get in or helps them with the application process. My dad never told me this until I was much older, but I don't think I ever told you this, Nick. He told my dad I was not going to get into the Air Force Academy
Really?
because my grades were not competitive enough.
Hmm.
That I wasn't smart enough. And my dad didn't ever tell me that, which was good.
So how did you
But
get around that?
because I worked my butt off with extracurriculars and leadership opportunities and just everything I could get busy doing, I did. And then I met another liaison officer who was not local to me, but I met him at a high school student seminar in Washington.
Mhm.
And he kind of took me under his wing and he said, if you want to be a fighter pilot, you need to go to the Air Force Academy. You need to graduate. You actually need to be a sailplane instructor there. You need to graduate high enough in your class then to go be at NJEPT, which was a NATO program that only trained fighter pilots. So it was the only of the 4 or 5 pilot training bases, the only one you could go to where you knew you're going to get a fighter. So
Mhm.
if you can follow that path, that's the most direct way. So he kind of mentored me on that, and I would send him my resume, and he would look at it and tell me how to tweak things and stuff like that. So I got to credit him with helping me learn how to market myself. But and that's such an important skill for military people to have
Mhm.
after they leave the military too.
Yeah,
But he
it's
taught me
hard for us
that.
to talk about ourselves and actually authenticate, or articulate what exactly did we do in the military that's helpful, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge, huge issue. It was a big issue when I was leaving the military too, when I was
Mhm.
retiring, or actually when I left the active duty and joined the reserves. But I worked my butt off, like I said, to get there, and it was the extracurriculars that pushed me over the edge. And West Point actually tried to recruit me.
Really?
Yeah, so because my extracurricular record was strong enough, and that they really, really wanted me, and Air Force was focused a little more on academics.
Mhm.
So I had to tell West Point, not yet. I want to see what Air Force does. And that was risky because that threw me back in the pool with the rest of the candidates because they were
Sure.
giving me an early offer. But then eventually I did get Air Force and went there, graduated, was a sailplane instructor like that liaison officer recommended I should become. Got a NATO slot or Euro NATO slot, trained there. After graduating, flew F-16s, went to Korea, did a tour in Iraq, went back to Shepherd Air Force Base to be an instructor pilot. Did that for a few years in active duty, and then I left active duty, joined the reserves, and flew as a reservist in the training unit for about 4 years. And then I
Okay.
finished up my time in the Air Force as a liaison officer for the Air Force Academy again,
Nice.
and retired at 20 years of service in July of 2019. So
Really? It was only 2019?
yeah, that's when I retired. So, but I
Oh, I didn't know
left
that.
active duty in 2011. I stopped flying in 2015 for the Air Force.
Well, I guess we
But
didn't really meet until 2019, so
yeah,
maybe
no,
this
it
was
was
after we
20,
met.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. So it was right around when I was retiring when we met. But when I left active duty, I also got a civilian job as an airline pilot, which gave me a lot of time on my hands. That's one of the
Mhm.
cool things about the airline job. If depending on how you want to structure it, is I do a lot of on-call work. So if I'm not
Mhm.
used, I have a lot of free time. So I started going to a gym that had a MMA conditioning program
Okay.
and got really into that over the course of about 2 years. And I wanted to get more serious about it. And then just looking at the injury risk with MMA and other stuff in my career, the coaches and I talked, and we figured out maybe I should give jiu-jitsu a shot.
Okay.
Which, for people that don't know what jiu-jitsu is, it's a grappling art. It's a lot like wrestling, but there's submissions in it. But I think the catastrophic injury rate in jiu-jitsu is a lot less than,
Yeah, I
than
would say
MMA
so.
fighting and stuff like that.
The majority of
Um,
injuries are usually ego taking over. For the
Yeah,
most
I
part,
mean,
if you have two
yeah.
people that roll together that respect each other, you're not going to get hurt.
And you see guys doing it well into old age. I mean,
Oh yeah, my jiu-jitsu
yeah,
coach I think Mark is like 50, 56 or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
guy, yeah. You can do it for a long, long time. And I mean,
Mhm.
I left active duty at 173 pounds. I'm doing an event tomorrow night, a professional event, and I weighed in about 151.2.
Is that
So,
the fight
and
to win?
for fight to win, yeah, for tomorrow night
Nice.
here in Minneapolis.
I got to get in
Um,
one of those, man. I'm a purple belt now, so
yeah,
I got to step my game up.
it's so fun. Because you get your professional MMA style walkout.
Mhm.
Nowhere in my life, I'm 44 years old. Like, nobody cares about, nobody wants to see me perform as a professional athlete, right? So
Dude, watching you come out in your fighter jet suit was the coolest thing in the world.
it was so fun, and I do love the stage, and I love to perform. I mean, I grew up doing that. I used to be in a couple bands, so that to me is worth all the stress and anxiety of competing, because it is stressful.
Mhm.
You don't want to lose, and you don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to suck, right? But you have to, and just comes into jujitsu later, but sometimes you have to endure crappy stuff
Mhm.
to get to the good stuff. So, like, the good stuff for me is being on stage, having fun, maybe even helping inspire other people. Like, if TJ can do that, I can do that. Like, people have told me stuff like that before. So that's one of the reasons why I like to put myself in that position.
Yeah.
But so when I decided I was going to try jujitsu, I was able to train on the road as well, because sometimes when I'm working, I'm gone and I have a
Mhm.
long layover. So I was in a gym in Chicago, it was a Adam Redzovic gym, and I met a
Okay.
veteran in the locker room who had gotten back from Iraq, and he was having a lot of family struggles and employment struggles after the army. And I have a psychology background, I undergraduate from the academy. It's a subject that I love. If I hadn't gone to the Air Force Academy, I would have probably had to have been like a computer science guy or electrical engineer, something that I would have hated, but I
Yeah.
would have done it. So by going to the academy, I got to study whatever I wanted, and I studied psychology and human
Nice.
behavior. So I've had a layman's interest in it for years, especially in trauma management and recovery. And I was talking to this fella in the gym, and after maybe an hour, he said, some of the stuff you've told me here and you've posed to me, because we were talking about PTSD and moral injury and
Mhm.
some of those concepts. He goes, that was more useful to me than some of the time I spent with some therapists. And I
Yeah.
really think maybe you have something to offer other veterans who are needing help or a perspective shift. And that put the bug in me that I should try to get involved in something.
Yeah.
I didn't know what yet. But a couple months after that, there was an event in Minneapolis called Twin Cities Invitational, where a local group of people that support nonprofits brought in Mission 22, which is another veterans nonprofit, and then We Defy Foundation, which was very small and was growing. This is probably 2018, maybe summer of 2018.
Okay.
And so a couple of the board members came up. One of the founders was there, and there was a couple seminars and a bunch of super fights, and they just the the board members that were competing were just, they just annihilated their opponents. Like, Alan Shabaro is one of the founders, is a former Green Beret. I think he was the first black belt in the Green Berets,
Dude,
and
I trained with
he's a
him down in
Hulk.
Texas.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude, he threw me. He
hmm
he was showing us a judo
yeah,
throw, and I'm like, "So how do you finish this throw?" And he doesn't say anything. Like, you know him very well. His just
yeah,
like silent look on his face. He walks over and grabs the crash pad and pulls it out. I'm like, "No, no, no. I wasn't asking for you to throw me." He's like, "Just like, here, stand here and I'll show you."
yeah.
Dude, when he threw, I pissed blood for 2 weeks. Like, he threw me so hard and landed just with all the force of his 240-pound body. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
He is he is
He's a
exceptionally
monster.
talented too,
Yeah.
in a bunch of arts and sports. I mean, but what's awesome about him, because I've gotten to train with him, he's mentored to me a little bit at times. His team, he's not there for him.
Mhm.
Like, he gets so excited to see his students achieve. And it doesn't matter how far along the jiu-jitsu path they are, he just wants to see them succeed. He wants the people around him to succeed and to help themselves become just a little better every day.
Yeah.
And it's super when you interact with him and he's teaching you and mentoring you, it's very obvious how much concern he has for his students, for his
Yeah.
his people, you know, which is kind of what led to how he founded We Defy Foundation, which we'll get to. But after seeing them at the event and seeing what they did, and that this was a jiu-jitsu nonprofit for veterans that I wanted to get involved in, I decided I was going to go to his gym and not leave until he told me I could be involved. So
That's one way to do it.
so I went down there to visit my best friend who lives in North Dallas, but really it was to go to check out his gym. And I walked in and met the office manager and some of the other people on the team and introduced myself. And they said they happened to be starting a ambassador team, and that I should email a woman named Gina Franson. Like, Gina Franson from Minnesota?
Yeah.
She's a black belt up in Minnesota, and she was on the board at the time.
First
she was
female
standing
black
up,
belt in Minnesota, by the way.
right? So so that, which is an incredible accomplishment in and of itself. So she was standing up the ambassador team, and that's how I ended up getting involved in We Defy Foundation.
Gina's actually how I got introduced to you.
I thought it was. I didn't know. It was her and Mike, right?
Gina introduced me to Mike, and
Okay.
she's like, you know, Mike and TJ are the two people you need to talk to.
Okay.
And then I talked to Mike, and Mike's like, you need to talk to TJ. And so that's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah. So Mike Ellefson is a gym owner over in Wisconsin, and his gym was one of the first We Defy Foundation partner gyms, and they've had a number of veterans there over the years that we've sponsored. So what We Defy Foundation does is sponsor disabled veterans under certain criteria to give them a therapy tool. It's not that jiu-jitsu is perfect, and it's Alan will tell you this, Alan Shabar will tell you this, it's not the way, but it's a way. And for many veterans, it pairs really well with who they are, with who they were in the military, who they were as warriors, because it is a warrior sport. There's a bunch of awesome physiological benefits of doing jiu-jitsu, but there's a community aspect to it too that ties you right into civilian community and civilian life, and helps people to break out of some of these identity challenges military folks sometimes have when they leave the military and they're looking for a new sense of purpose. So
I tell people all the time that jiu-jitsu has a camaraderie that rivals the military, and that's an absolute truth.
Yeah, and I think if you ask veterans that are involved in jiu-jitsu, most of them are going to put it on par with that same thing. But now it's not just with other veterans. I mean, when we're in a gym with that there are veterans in, we do tend to quickly identify each other.
Yeah.
And we have that piece. But you don't look at the civilians in the gym different, really. I don't think.
There are equals. Blood, sweat,
Yeah.
and tears, man.
Yeah,
That's what makes the military camaraderie.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, it is a violent sport, and you are taking care of each other to not harm each other, but at the same time, they're trusting you to not harm them while they're being put in incredibly vulnerable positions in terms of injury and or death, you know, with submission holds and everything like that. You build bonds with people with that trust. And a lot of folks come back from the military with what I call a trust deficit. And it starts especially when you're deployed in a combat zone. You look at Afghanistan, Iraq, and you don't know who in the general populace you can trust. Even kids, you know, you don't know what the other people's intentions are. If someone's, you know, advancing with a weapon, maybe it's a child, and what do you do? You begin to lose trust in the people around you, except for the people that you're serving with, because those are the ones that have your back. When you're in that environment for a long, long time, and then you come home, you have built up this trust deficit. And, you know, there's times when we go to the organizations that are supposed to assist us, you know, the VA, other places, and if we have a bad experience there, and they're not all bad experiences, and not everybody has terrible experiences, but when we do, it just adds to that trust deficit. And this narrative that we may have started to tell ourselves as a defense mechanism, that we shouldn't trust people anymore. We can't trust anyone except for a very small number of people. That eventually does lead to isolation, and isolation leads to anxiety and depression. You pair that with symptoms of PTSD, and you can see one of the components of why so many veterans are committing suicide.
Hmm.
Jiu-jitsu helps break us out of that, because the activity itself helps you learn to trust again people outside your circle. And I think you can only imagine what that might be like for someone who is a survivor of military sexual trauma, or not just military, but anyone, who experienced something like that, and how intimacy and close contact would be a very serious trigger for certain, memories or emotions.
Well,
Now you're
you
in
talk
this.
you talk about very often how there's a few things that jujitsu does for you, and one thing that you brought to my attention that I never thought about when we first started talking about this is human touch. And how
Mhm.
how much of a no-no it is in life nowadays. And jujitsu, like me and you have rolled multiple times, like just sweat each other's face and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like it's weird to sit here and think that you're literally laying there hugging somebody, or like you're just trying to smash them, and like we can come up and hug each other in the gym, like just come up behind somebody and put a choke on just to joke around, and it's
Yeah.
perfectly acceptable. It's something we don't get in everyday life, and you actually brought that to my attention, that human touch is one of the things that jujitsu really, really gives you.
Well, I think that there's a lot of great recreational activities that folks do find and get into, like mountain climbing, you know what Warrior's Next Adventure does with the wolves. Like, that's a really neat, pastime to go take people out into the woods with wolves and things like that. Kayaking, CrossFit. There's a bunch of different things, but jujitsu has touch.
Hmm.
And if you think about that component, it's unique. You think about your kids, and when they're little. Like, I got my little 8-year-old son, and every time I drive him to school, I take my hand and I put it behind me in between the seats, and he just takes his hand, he touches it for about 3 seconds, and then he slowly pulls it away. And but it's just what we do. We hug our kids, we hug our
Yeah.
families. That's normal, important contact. But as our kids get older, they start to pull away from that, and touch becomes something that they don't need as much or don't desire as much. And then you've got the societal, you know, um, just taboos
Hmm.
on what I'll call appropriate touch, or intimacy or closeness. Things that we have our bubbles, we have these things, but we're actually built physiologically to touch. Society makes it hard for us to do that, but there are endorphins and chemicals that are released in your body. The same ones that when you look at your dog and they stare at you with their big eyes, and you can tell they're shaking because they want so badly for you to pet them.
Yeah.
they those chemicals that are being released when they make eye contact are the same chemicals we get when we touch another human being. So you're building bonds with people in the gym, whether it's men or women, it doesn't matter who. Every time you touch like that, you're engaged in a sport where you're fake killing each other, you know, but you're creating a bond in terms of trust because of their actions, that they're not going to hurt you, that they're going to respect the tap when you tap out, that you're going to stop this attack, but they also are bonding with you over touch. It's a really unique, really important human being thing that I think is therapeutic, and it's missing from most of our lives.
Yeah, and especially in like regular therapy, you sit in a room away from your therapist. You sit in a room away from whoever you're talking to, and the intimacy actually, can, like you said, release certain neurotransmitters that we need to actually help us heal. And jujitsu hits so many neurotransmitters. It's the fitness aspect, it's the touch aspect. On top of that, you get, what I tell people all the time: Warriors Next Adventure focuses on three things: sense of purpose, camaraderie, and adventure. And so those two things just, they're so important to veterans, because we don't really realize, even in the military, like we were always punching each other and like wrestling and doing all kinds of stuff, right? Especially the Marines. The Air Force, not so much.
We had bar fights.
I know, right?
Friday night fights in the bar.
There you go. But like you say so often that jiu-jitsu gives us so much that we crave that we might not even realize it. And so
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu actually gives people the opportunity to experience those things and be like, wow, what have I been missing out on? You know?
What I usually break it down. There's so many things, but I try to put it in 5 big categories. Fitness is one of them. Uh, that touch is one of them. Community is one. Structure is one, and then achievement would be the last one. So we already talked about the importance of touch. Physical fitness, it's kind of the no-brainer one because we all know that we talk about how important endorphins are, and things like that in our daily lives, how they can help us combat the symptoms of anxiety and depression, the way they can help to reset some of those systems. But if you know what a rumination loop is, I think this is one of the really also fairly unique things about jujitsu. When we're suffering from anxiety or depression, especially, we often get caught in a thought process called a rumination loop, where we're trying to solve a problem, but we can never solve it. Like whether it's a divorce or a financial trouble, we keep coming back to how do we fix this thing? Or maybe we think back to something that happened while we were deployed, survivor's guilt, things we should have done differently, things maybe we could have, grieving, all these different things that we get stuck in this rumination loop. And when we're really in the dark places, that loop doesn't stop. So jujitsu is unique because when you're engaged in jujitsu, somebody is trying to, for all intents and purposes, incapacitate you or break a limb. It's safe because we're going to tap out and we take care of our training partners. But when you're really going at it against somebody else, that rumination loop stops because your brain is not going to prioritize that thing that's not as important right now. Your brain is going to prioritize survival. So as a fighter pilot, we used to talk about near rocks and far rocks. Well, that rumination loop, those problems are now a far rock. The near rocks are going to kill you first. So your brain puts that on the front burner. So while you're doing this jujitsu and you're getting all these endorphins and this touch and all these chemicals and trust building, all this stuff's going on, it also breaks up that rumination loop. It resets it. So maybe when you go back to your car and you're driving home, maybe it slowly creeps back in. Then maybe by the end of the evening, you're stuck back in it, but you broke it for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And then that was Monday. Maybe Thursday, you go and you break it again. Maybe Saturday you break it again. And it's like, this is pretty cool. And then Monday and Tuesday you break it again. And now you are in the practice of breaking the rumination loop. You're resetting all these psychological and physiological processes in your body. So I include that in the fitness part of this discussion because I do think of it as a physiological benefit of jujitsu, but it's a cognitive and physiological thing. Because when you have a rumination loop, your fight or flight system is on. That anytime we're problem solving and it's causing stress, the system in us, that fight or flight one that was built to fend off the saber-toothed tiger, is on, and it needs to be used in a way physically, or it just keeps creating cortisol and other junk that, if it's not used in your body, will break you down physically and emotionally. So
by the way, thank you for the connection with Gino. When I went down and interviewed him, that's one of the things that we talked about. And as many of you know, Warriors Next Adventure, we filmed a documentary April through June called PTSD versus Jiu-Jitsu. And it's telling the stories of veterans all around the country. And We Defy backed us on that and gave us so much help. And I just want to say thank you for getting everybody involved and helping. As many of you may know as well, I'm also an ambassador for We Defy. I love these guys. There's a reason why I continue to work with them. You guys, there was no pushback when I reached out to you guys to say, hey, I'm a nonprofit and we're also getting into jiu-jitsu. It's not our main thing. And so what I always tell people is, like, anytime we're doing some sort of jiu-jitsu, I always talk about We Defy Foundation, because you guys are the ones doing jiu-jitsu. You guys are the ones that are actually making things happen and helping so many people, like Tyler. Tyler actually agreed to come on the show sometime soon and talk about some of the things that he's been through. This is a kid who's lost 60 pounds training jiu-jitsu and fought addiction habits and all kinds of amazing things because jiu-jitsu gave him an outlet right? And like Alan says all the time, it may not be the way, but it's a way. And
Yeah.
he held on to that and completely morphed his life. So because of people like, because of We Defy Foundation, I personally know like 10 veterans who have 100% benefited from you guys and the services that you provide. It's absolutely amazing what you guys are doing.
When we in September, we had just placed our 300th.
Oh,
athlete.
300 already?
Yeah. So we're at
Holy
300.
crap.
We're at 340-ish right now, or 330,
That's
something
from
like that. I look it up, but
2018?
it started in 2015, at the end of
Okay.
2015, and it was just actually at the, I guess, summer of 2020, we were doing 5 a month. And prior to that, I mean, it was a small operation. So prior to
Adding
that,
5 a month?
we were placing 5 a month, placing 5 athletes a month in the
Okay.
program in the summer of 2020. And prior to that, they were doing whatever they could. Could be 1 a month, could be 3. It just depended on funding. But funding started to grow in 2018, 2019.
Mhm.
And then 2020 hit, and we're like, oh man, what's going to happen?
Yeah. That
But
was a rough year for
yeah, so
nonprofits.
we stopped placing anyone for 2 months just to kind of see what would happen, because gyms were closed, and I mean, of course they were.
Mhm.
But when we were able to start getting people training, and we started at 5 a month, but the funding never stopped. Like, people kept giving, and people were still generous, and people were still learning about us and getting excited about what we're doing. And now
Well,
we're
you guys
doing,
even had Ryan Gordon donate his purse to you guys, which if you guys don't know who Ryan Gordon is, go to Google.
Gordon Ryan.
I was thinking, Jesus
other
Christ,
way.
sorry about that.
Ryan
When
Gordon.
Gordon Ryan actually did that for you guys, like
Yeah.
that was huge.
So
I
that
could
was a
not believe that they did
$10,000
that.
event. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Our gala that we had in Dallas in September was 120,000. We've been recently awarded the VA Adaptive Sports Grant, which is our first major grant
Did
that
you
we've
guys
gotten.
get that?
We did.
Dude, I didn't know that
yeah.
that's amazing. It's so hard to
Yeah,
get any kind of
it's
funding from the VA.
yeah, it's pretty amazing what's been going on. With all the different sources and things, support. That's the growth. I mean, it took several years to have the operational credibility to make a big swing for some of these grants, but
Mhm.
they're starting to come in now. And so we're at 20 athletes a month right now. And a year and a half ago, we were at 5 in the middle of the pandemic, not knowing
Yeah.
what was going to happen. So
It's been
um,
beautiful watching, kind of from the inside, kind of from the outside, with how We Defy continues to grow, and actually being on the athlete engagement team and getting to talk to a lot of the athletes, who are all now my friend. Like Tyler, like I said, he's
yeah,
probably one of my best friends, and I met him through the athlete engagement program. Just helping him out, checking on him, just trying to see how everything's going. And then eventually, when I traveled around the country, I had all of my athletes from the We Defy program rode with me in my bus around the country for a week. So they got to see like the real side of jiu-jitsu, whereas that's going to different gyms and meeting other people who train jiu-jitsu and realizing that we are all the same. We're all a bunch of weirdos who have like all kinds of strange things going on in life, but once we get on the mats, we are all equal. They say it's the great equalizer. But getting to be a part of that has been huge for me and for everybody else. Just seeing how much you guys continue to grow. I hope that WNA can be as effective as you guys are. So
well, I think one thing we've talked about a ton too is like, you've mentioned that We Defy does jujitsu, but we're not the only ones that do jujitsu, and we're
Mhm.
not competing with anybody else.
Yeah,
Because
and
we're
that's the
all
thing.
the same team. Like, the 1 + 1 = 3. As long
Exactly.
as people are benefiting and being helped, then we should all be helping each other too. And
And that's
that's
the
kind of the
problem
way
with with some nonprofits. I'm not going to say names, but there's a competition aspect, and I won't answer them. I won't talk to them. I won't work with them, because I'm not going to,
Okay.
we're not in the business of competition. We're in the business of helping people. And the best way to help people is to collaborate. Like
Yeah. Yep.
I've totally stolen your 1 + 1 = 3, but I always say that you're the one that said it. But it just helps drive the point home,
Sure.
is that we need to work together collectively instead of just trying to compete for money, right? Because the mission needs to come first, money needs to come second. Some
But
things obviously
yeah,
are hard to do without money, but
That's true.
Yeah,
But it is,
but
we're all trying to help that target group. And I think,
mhm,
Gino talks about this a lot with the identity of soldiers, and talked about two aspects. The structure part's easy. I think jujitsu makes sense in some ways because there's a rank structure, there's a class time, you always know when it's going to be. And if the rest of your
mhm.
life is falling apart, at least you can hang your hat on every Thursday at 6 p.m. I go do jujitsu. Gets you out of the house, that having that structure when you're looking for a job and having a bunch of other messes going on, it helps. It helps to in a recovery process. The community
Especially
we've
when
talked a little bit about too. Go ahead.
yeah, especially when you dive into the whole seclusion and stuff like that, because veterans tend to be homebodies, right? And for the
Yeah.
longest time, after my little incident with suicide, the only thing that would get me to jump out of my seat and grab my shit and go was when I was going to jujitsu or
Yeah.
MMA practice,
Yeah.
because I knew that I knew everything that was going to happen. I was going
You're
to get
getting
my ass kicked.
Yeah.
I was going
You're
to
getting
learn some
dopamine
things.
hits too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
From the learning, from the physical activity. It's a pleasurable thing. It's like the sugar, the rat and the sugar thing, dut, 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 keep
Mhm.
giving me the sugar. You're gonna go because it feels good to go.
Well, that
And
and when
it's
you go into the gym and your favorite training partners are there, like, not even civilians, like, my first civilian friend after the military, was Stefan, and, I don't know if you've ever met Stefan, but he's from South America, but he's half black and half Dutch. So, like, he's this, like, black guy, then he starts speaking Dutch, and you're like, "I'm so confused as
Dutch
to
accent.
who I'm talking to right now." You know?
Yeah, sure.
And, like, me and him are, like, best friends.
Okay.
We're neck and neck with promotions and everything. Like, we both started training at tracks the same time. We both got our purple belts. He got his right before I did because I
Okay.
wasn't actually training at the time. I'm like, "God damn it." And because of him, I went back to the gym so I could catch up to him. It's a friendly competition, but, like, the people that you become friends with in
Yeah.
jujitsu, like, it's so
It's your
weird. Half the people at our gym are like politicians, like science nerds. Like, Eddie Bravo says all the time, jujitsu is, nerd assassins,
Yeah.
pretty
Well, you
much.
you look at the way we interact today because of social media so poorly.
Mhm.
And the way the methods we use today, it's very easy for us to put ourselves into camps over all kinds of different perspectives. When we're
Yeah.
face to face with people, the interactions change, and your tolerance and your willingness to exchange ideas or to just accept other people is different. Jiu-jitsu is very in your face. Like, I mean, you're very present. You're there in the room with the people doing things. You're not just sitting at a keyboard in your echo chamber getting triggered and getting
Mhm.
angry because somebody didn't agree with you. Now you're in a room face to face with someone who maybe doesn't see eye to eye with you and everything, but you work together on a thing to make both of you better. And all of those differences, you don't care about them because now you're
Mhm.
focused on how you're similar. You're focused on how you're a team. We don't get that enough in today's society because of the way we communicate with technology. It's just
Yeah.
the way it is.
I
And that's
agree
another component of
100%.
that community part of this entire discussion. I think the achievement part is is really neat. The foundation's tagline is "Prove them wrong," and when we leave the military, especially if we have serious disabilities, I think sometimes we listen to people that tell us what the labels are, that disabled veteran or PTSD or other things that are wrong with you, and how that's going to impact your life, going forward. Well, all those voices, they can be internalized, unfortunately. So the tagline "Prove them wrong" is, well, let's prove those voices wrong. Let's go out and do this jujitsu thing. The other founder, Joey Bozic, is a triple amputee who
Mhm.
competes in jujitsu, and he was Alan's student. That's how this whole idea started. Was, well, look
His
what it's
his
done
interview
for.
for the documentary is gonna be great.
Oh, I'm sure it's outstanding.
He's so good at articulating why they do what they do.
Yeah, yeah, he's outstanding, and it's that's achievement, proving those voices wrong. But what you're really doing is proving the voices inside you wrong. That little naysayer narrative that we tell ourselves when we start to label ourselves, or fear creeps in. I use jujitsu competition as the same thing. I have a big live professional event tomorrow night, and I absolutely have thoughts that creep in, like, oh man, what if this goes south? What if it's what blah blah blah? You learn to not listen to the naysayer,
Yeah,
because we
you learn to
all
push
have
past it
those thoughts. Yeah, you
and
learn to say, you know
overcome it,
what?
you know?
You have all these voices and thoughts, and our bodies, our minds automatically focus on the ones that are negative because they're threatening. They cause anxiety, which then causes the fight or flight reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're all primed to worry about that and problem solve and ruminate on that thing. You can also learn this is through, you can get better at this as a skill set with a good therapist, is learning to identify which of those thoughts that are popping in are either unhelpful or irrelevant or just plain untrue,
Mm-hmm.
and you let them go, and you
Yeah.
focus on the things that you have control over,
Well,
the
jujitsu
things
is
that benefit
controlled
you.
chaos, you know, like we throw
For
ourselves into
sure. Yeah.
chaos. We throw
Yeah.
ourselves into
It's a
wrestling.
problem solving
Yeah.
exercise.
And then at
Yeah.
the same time, it teaches you to just be comfortable. Like, which by the way, I actually just was watching some of the video of us rolling together.
Oh, were
And
you?
like,
Did you find it?
yeah, I
I want
finally
to see
found
it
it.
so bad.
I'll send you a video here soon.
Okay.
But I'm actually starting to piece together the documentary in episodes. So I'm starting
Okay.
with the Minnesota episode,
Sure.
and I'm actually using a lot of your interview that I did
Oh,
with
cool.
you because
That's fun.
you articulate what I'm trying to talk about,
Oh,
which is
thank you.
perfect. And then that was such a fun seminar too. And I'm trying to do something along those lines up in Duluth. We were going to go when Tyler was here, but I was struggling with
Sure. Yeah.
recovery from surgery and everything. But we're going to go up there again soon. But it's so fun to go back and watch that stuff because now you have the purpose aspect, right? So the purpose aspect of jiu-jitsu is you get to actually do certain things that you never thought you get to do. Like you think about it like this. Say you've never done, any kind of like, say you weren't a fighter pilot, right? Which is badass, but you get to the point where you're how old?
44.
And you're about to compete professionally in front of a shitload of people who
Yeah.
love jujitsu. And
Yeah.
these fight to win, if you've never seen fight to win, go Google it. They're so cool. Like it's
So
one-on-one
fun.
competition for purple belts, brown belts. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I've been dying to do one of those. I'm just not in competition shape yet. But after I'm done with this whole cancer thing, my goal is to get back into that competition mode.
Yeah.
Which I won't say where I'm going. Well, yeah, I will. So I'm actually heading out to Saratoga Springs and to surprise a veteran. And by the time this airs, we're actually going to be presenting him with a lifetime pass from Grappling Industries, because Grappling Industries does a lifetime pass. And so they gave us a massive discount, and we provided it to him because he's doing something called Rolling for Resistance. And so Justin Hall is the guy that we talked about not
Okay.
too long ago.
Mhm.
And so we gave him a lifetime pass. So now he can compete for free
Awesome.
for the Grappling Industries the rest of his life. And I said, screw it. And I signed up for the tournament. So I'm actually competing on Saturday too. And I just had surgery a month ago, but yeah, screw it. We'll see what happens. But it's so fun because I know I can compete in that, and I likely will not get injured. If I get to that point where, it's just a little too uncomfortable, because stretching back a little bit right now, because my abdomen was cut open,
Mhm.
it's a little painful, but for the most part, it's fine. If I do one match and I realize that I'm going to get hurt, I can just okay,
Done.
I'm just back out.
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
as
true.
simple as that.
Yeah.
But it's so cool actually doing a sport where you get to compete, in a competitive competition in front of your friends and family. That is a great feeling. And if you've never experienced that, it's so much fun.
I haven't been able to put this into words. I'm gonna try. I don't feel like I necessarily deserve the opportunities that jujitsu has brought for me. Because I've gotten to do fight to win before. I've competed in world championships, as an old guy, amateur, but they're there.
The Masters division.
Yeah. So, to be involved in We Defy and to see what it's doing to people's lives, like I don't feel like I deserve any of this awesome stuff that I'm getting to participate in. I think everybody deserves it. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the other way to put it. I think
Yeah.
if I can do anything, I hope that by doing it and people seeing me do it, they will try. Like
Yeah.
that's I want people, because there's nothing about me that makes me any different than anybody else, except that I was willing to take some safe risks.
Yeah.
And I was willing to endure discomfort to go try this stuff, and it's awesome.
Well,
And
it's the
I
same
wish
with
I could.
Warriors. Go ahead. Sorry.
I hope that I can help other people feel inspired and confident enough in themselves to just take a shot, and recognize that it might feel uncomfortable, it might be scary,
Mhm.
but it's worth it. Just take it,
Yeah.
because the other side is worth it. The
Well,
benefits
that's
outweigh
why I
the
tell
risks.
people all the time, like the reason why I do all these things I do with Warriors Next Adventure is because not only is it fun to race cars and climb mountains and train
Yeah.
jujitsu, like yeah, it's awesome,
Yeah.
but I do it as an attempt to inspire other veterans to actually live those kind of lives, because you can do the whole mopey sad veteran thing and just sit at home and hate your life. Fuck that. Like, who does that help? That
There's so
helps
much
nobody.
more. No.
And there's, like you said, there's so much more to life. And so my whole goal is, by being the example, by doing all these fun things, but bringing veterans with me everywhere I go, which, by the way, TJ, we need to get you in a race car next year.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you should do it, man. So we actually worked it out to where we're going to do minimum of 10 races next year.
Okay.
And we actually got access to another race car. So we got a race car donated to us that we have to build this winter. It's a street stock, and I get to race that one. And then we're going to have
watching
veterans.
that video was awesome.
Dude, thank you.
Like,
Yeah,
your
it was
helmet
a lot
cam,
of
your
fun,
dash
man.
cam was amazing. That
Dude, the
was
dash cam video is perfect,
just
and I just use my
unreal.
phone. I just
That's
record in
fantastic.
4K, so I actually
That's
have
so
like good
cool.
video. And
Yeah,
then,
that
so
was
what
cool.
we'll do is every veteran who races, we're going to make a video for them. So not
Wow.
only do they get to do the race, which is fun, it's a dirt track racing for those who don't know. And we have a Saturn Ion that's converted into a dirt track car with a roll cage and race seats and everything. Dude, it is so much fun.
It
The best
looks
reason
awesome.
is because you don't get to practice.
Yeah.
You go out there and you do it.
When I watched, like, how does Nick know how to do this?
You just do it,
How
man.
did he not hit those two other cars?
Well, see, that's the thing. Well, I grew up racing too, and we
Okay,
used to
so-
drag race in the military all the time. So like when it comes to racing, I've been doing it for a long time, but
Okay.
I had never dirt track raced until last year. And I actually finished 14th place out of 16. And then this year, I only did one race because we had a lot going on this summer and we didn't get the car out at all. But this last race, I actually finished 7th place out of 35.
Oh wow,
And
that's
got
awesome.
paid $80. Woo! So the only rule is everybody who races a Warriors Next Adventure race car, you have to donate your race winnings to the nonprofit.
That's easy.
Yeah. But we are doing a deal. So the racers who are going to race with us a lot next year, if you place top 3 times, so you have to finish top 3. That third time you finish top 3, if you finish first, second, third, you get to keep all your winnings. So which can sometimes be about $500. So $500 to go do something fun. That's awesome.
The guy I'm competing against tomorrow night, Ryan Wright, we both agreed that we're going to donate our purse to We Defy.
Oh, nice, man.
So
that's awesome. Well, hey, we only got 1 minute left here. What we're going to do is me and TJ are going to end this here in about a minute, and we're going to head over to Patreon, right? So we have a Patreon. It's just Veterans Action Report. What you do, it's $5 a month, and you get access to all the behind the scenes. So almost every single episode, we're going to have additional footage. We're going to ask some goofy questions. We're getting to the point where we're getting everything like in a list of what we're going to have in the bonus features. But I'm going to have TJ share some fun stories of jiu-jitsu and some pretty cool stories about flying a fighter jet. So go ahead and check that out. Go check out, let's see here. There we go. We Defy Foundation.org. Go check out their stuff, check out their Facebook, their Instagram, everything like that. TJ, thank you. I really appreciate you. And we are going to head over to Patreon.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Perfect.